Adidas is very eclectic in the way he approaches the realization of the notions and the energies he plays with. It solicits a specific kind of internal language in myself. It's like I begin to emotionally and psychologically think and feel in a different language, and I relate to it in a different way than I did before. And this is something I've acquired over the last 2 years in working with his art or being in front of his art. And he is very unique. I mean, he really and truly is. It's not only his art, it's a marvelous story. I mean, this is a spiritual teacher who follows a very distinct tradition in Western art about spirituality and art, who's very articulate, who has decided to bring his art before the world. When the proposal was first thrown in front of me that Adidas should be in the Biennale, but it had to be a collateral. I mean, that's probably the most difficult category to get into with, 500 some applicants or whatever, and they picked 33 or 35 this year. I mean, it's not an easy chore at all. And I at first rejected the idea. I said that this is, with all the challenges in front of you, this isn't it. But then I thought, this is such a mad idea that it may just be a good idea and might work, because we really need to jumpstart international awareness of Adidas Samráje. And the Biennale could perhaps be exactly the proper forum. It was absolutely marvelous. It's like a production, and people walk in on the opening day and go, "Oh, this is absolutely fabulous." And we have received very good reviews. And those people who have seen it, I mean, to walk into an exhibition like that and describe it as, quote, stunning, quote, not to be missed, quote, the finest example of digital art I've ever seen. I mean, well, something's going right. And Aquila Benito Oliva is probably, if not one of the most respected critics and curators in Italy. I mean, he curated 2 previous Biennale shows. Enormously respected individual. And he told me that he had taken the time to look at Adidas' art and that he was genuinely impressed with it. And then I opened the issue of his perhaps curating the show. And without hesitation, he said, "Of course, I'd love to curate the show." And during the opening at the Palazzo Bologna, taking the Assessore della Cultura, the head of culture for Venice, through the exhibition and sitting there and explaining to her what was going on, it was just absolutely marvelous to see. So we were very fortunate to have him, actually. And for us, it was important to have a major critic who was able to position Adidas' work in a broader historic context.
fronte all'opera di Adida è facile vedere pop art, optical art, tutte le referenze linguistiche, iconologiche, iconografiche possibili, ma alla fine la sintesi, l'opera finale, è sempre invece una sorpresa.
It's easy to see in Arida's work the usual references to optical art or pop art, but in the end, it's a unique expression that is surprising. He understands that most Americans haven't studied Latin or Greek, but he could reference the work of Arida to the word epiphany. Epiphany means apparition, so the way to relate to Arida's art is that of an apparition that presents itself to the viewer spiritually, mentally, and psychologically.
Insomma, l'opera di Adida è un nutrimento spirituale e noi questa sera col nutrimento alimentare lo festeggiamo. Grazie.
So the work of Arida is a spiritual nourishment, and tonight with a physical nourishment we celebrate him.
Grazie.
Mille grazie.
Florence has every year an event called Winter in Florence. It's a series of events where they invite some artists. The head of the Winter in Florence annual festival had come herself to Venice and was deeply impressed with the work of Arida Samráje.
And she fell in love, literally. She was so enthusiastic, and immediately she thought that it might be interesting to put this kind of paintings in comparison with the Florentine context. And so she came to me as the director of the museums, and we tried together to figure out how to create a proper environment for such a contemporary artistic expression. And of course this kind of cenacoli came to my mind immediately. Cenacoli are a typical Renaissance in earlier Gothic building where basically the space is empty except for the main wall with the Last Supper painted by an artist, very often a very good master, like in our case is Ghirlandaio. So it came to my mind that these empty spaces might fit with a purpose to show such an extremely bright and lively expression.
The experience of perspective is an experience of all the time in Italy, and especially. This is like a kaleidoscope.
Yes.
With those color, those intensive color. It is so exciting, I think. So I hope that the public will agree.
Parti completamente a prospetti, che parti con grandi prospettive che ti fanno entrare in questi meandri molto astratti ma con sentimento in qualche modo.
Okay. So she was saying that you enter and immediately you're faced with this incredible masterpiece of the Ghirlandaio fresco, which is a perfect example of perspective, to the point where it draws you in and you almost go outside into the garden that's part of the painting. And then on the left, you immediately come into a relationship with this wonderful and very long piece, very large piece, which is very complex, and it's created by combining many panels, and also has so many details and so much complexity of color and form. And some of that is aperspectival, and some of it has a play with perspective, where the detail actually draws you into the painting, and there are different layers and different perceptions you can have, even of a sense of perspective that even can arise. And somehow the effect of this piece is also emotional. Somehow it also evokes feeling, mysteriously.
Exactly.
The seeds of the modern world were planted in Renaissance Florence, in the painters' workshops of that time. So we see a vision of the art of the past, we see a vision of the potential art of the future. And we can ask questions. If the perspectival art of Ghirlandaio and his colleagues led to our modern age, what kind of world would the aperspectival art of Adidas Samráje lead to at some distant point in the future? And that's worth considering, interesting to consider.
There have been many artists through history who have taken, changes and shifts, and their personalities and their visions had a great impact on how the trajectory of art took off. I wouldn't be promoting Adidas Samráje if I didn't believe that he's one of those artists where that is true. We may not see that recognized in the art world for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years, but it will be. It will be. It's a very, very special, unusual artist.